Hello and welcome to the first of a series of Partner Interactive Webinars dedicated to IoT. My name is Jason Chung and I'm an IoT PSS responsible for routes to market in Canada. I'll be your host today and I'll be moderating a fireside chat with our guests Vikram Sharma and Prithvi Manduva. The subject of today's PIW is the journey to securing industrial networks. The presentation deck will be made available to you in the WebEx team space after the session. Most of you have already been invited to this team space. If you have not received an invitation, please scan the QR code and to request access. Finally, we invite you to post your questions in that space, and panelists are standing by to answer them during the session. Before we got started, I'd like to share some important Cisco IoT announcements with you. First, I'd like to remind you that we launched the Cisco IoT Partner Portal earlier this year in Q3. This portal is your go-to place for everything IoT and is dedicated to Cisco IoT partners. You'll find a wealth of resources and tools there, and those tools will make your daily lives easier. Please bookmark the vanity URL, iotpartners.cisco.com. Second, I'd like to share two promotions available to you this quarter. The first one is the 443. With this offer, your customer will be entitled to 4 IE 3300s or 3400s for the price of 3. The second offer entitles your customer to 1 year of CyberVision and DNA Center subscription for free with the purchase of any Cisco IE 3400. Lastly, I would like to remind you that Cisco IoT partners have access to Marketing Velocity Central. If you're not familiar with MVC, it's a one-stop shop for co-branding marketing campaigns with Cisco. There are currently 3 campaigns available at this time. The first one being the Industrial Connectivity campaign based on our Cisco Industrial Ethernet switches. CyberVision, our flagship cybersecurity platform for industrial networks. IAV, our Industrial Asset Vision, which is a full stack bundle solution. It includes sensors, LoRaWAN connectivity, a cloud-based management platform, and delivers dashboard and reporting capabilities as well. The last announcement that I would like to make is with regards to the Cisco IoT Specialization Program for Cisco Partners. For those of you that are interested in continuing your IoT journey with Cisco and building an IoT practice within your organization, I would encourage you to reach out to me, your Cisco PAM, or your local PSS to discuss the growth and profitability opportunity that's associated with Cisco IoT. We can provide you with an overview of the IoT specialization program, the benefits, the requirements, and the financial upsides, which include Ignite discounts for level 1 and level 2, as well as stackable incentive programs such as OIP, TIP, and MIP, as well as the backend VIP backend rebate. And now let's move on to the main event. Let's discuss the journey to securing industrial networks. Please allow me to introduce you to Vikram Sharma and Prithvi Manduva. Vikram, welcome to the PIW. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Jason, for inviting me to this fireside chat. I'm Vikram Sharma, part of the Internet of Things business unit. I focus on security solutions, and my background is manufacturing. I've been running manufacturing plants for the last 16 odd years, part of Cisco's manufacturing organization, focused on the networks and the security of the manufacturing networks.
And Prithvi, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in industrial networks.
Hi, this is Prithvi Manduva from Cisco IoT Route to Market team. I'm the technical solutions architect for the team supporting US, Canada, and I have been with Cisco with IoT for almost 8 years now. Been part of CPW manufacturing, Cisco validated design document team. I've developed CVDs for security, for manufacturing side, partnering with Rockwell. Now I'm supporting, my focused area is towards all the IoT solutions.
Thank you both for joining us today. So, Vikram, can you tell me a little bit more about recent cybersecurity activities in industrial networks?
Yeah, sure. As a lot of us have seen over different newscasts, the attacks on cybersecurity attacks have been concentrating and increasing and becoming more disruptive, while at the same time more frequent. So there are intellectual property thefts. There are a lot of malware attacks, viruses, other intrusions. And there are also OT-specific attacks and intrusions that are going on. If you look at some of the examples, you have Maersk, Mondelez, Reckitt. I won't go through this list, but as you can see on these two slides, the frequency of the attacks, and these attacks have become more and more disruptive. The latest few in the last 2-3 months, if you remember, was the attack on the Oldsmar water plant and on the Colonial Pipeline that was extremely disruptive. So this is not an academic problem anymore. It is of urgent need of attention. Cybersecurity in the industrial space is really important now.
Wow, Vikram, that's a lot to think about. It's clear from talking to OT managers that cybersecurity is not top of mind. In fact, the top three care abouts that we keep on hearing about is uptime, uptime, and uptime. We also know that OT managers are not cybersecurity experts. In a lot of cases, industrial networks grew organically, and changes were not made because changes adds complexity, and complexity adds risk. OT managers are facing so much pressure. So the first question that I have for you is, what should we look at first?
Jason, that's a really good call out, and it's a crucial topic. The interesting thing is that in the industrial networking space, there are several cybersecurity threats, and you know, to handle these threats, a lot of different things and processes are required. So if you look at it this way, the different kind of threats, you can put them under, intellectual property data theft and user identity and impersonation, physical security, and of course the industrial network cybersecurity threats. We'll obviously in this session we are focusing on the industrial network cybersecurity, and we've analyzed a lot of these attacks that have that I mentioned about and a lot more. And there have been some crucial learnings from these attacks. And the way I look at these, we bucketed them into like four major buckets. The first one was insufficient visibility of the assets deployed inside the industrial network. And this causes its own challenges, but you can appreciate that this is just not the list of assets, but it is also something more detailed about the assets. If the assets are running, are inherently vulnerable because they're running an old version, a vulnerable version of the OS. So overall, the visibility of the assets and the communications that these assets have. Secondly, we've seen that malware is the killer. A lot of these attacks are malformed software that get injected. These ransomware attacks are very common, or getting more and more common, I should say. The third thing here I want to talk about is the workflow between operational technology and information technology teams. These workflows were not very effective. Some of these attacks we have seen were handled adequately on the IT side, but they did impact the operational side. So there is a lot of workflow that these teams can leverage each other's skills and talents to provide a broader and overall security cover. And you hit upon the challenge of complexity. Yes, security does add complexity. So we need to make it in such a way that the path to security or the journey to security is something that can be effectively adopted, and security complexity does not bog down the adoption of security processes or increasing or enhancing the security posture. So these are at a high level, I would say, the 4 things we would like to concentrate on.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. But if I'm looking at the common approaches to protect industrial network from such threats, I see there are a lot of standards out there, like the ones that I'm thinking about as the ISO 27001, which is Information Security Management Systems. Are there other standards that we should be aware of? Can you talk a little bit about this?
Yes, I think, Jason, this is important, right? So um, the the security world has been evolving for a while, and we can adopt, we being in the industrial network side, we can adopt a lot of this progress and the standards that have been laid out over the last few years. So one common approach is the NIST cybersecurity framework. And this idea has been around for quite some time, and it was codified and published in 2014 for the first time, and there have been revisions since. But essentially, um, if you look at it, it provides a framework to identify, protect, then detect, respond, and recover. And this framework, or these pillars, as they call it, this offers a flexible way to address cybersecurity challenges, including the effect of cybersecurity on physical and people dimensions, right? So um, it is applicable across a lot of different industries, and definitely on the industrial control system side, it can be leveraged. Um, the 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 thing I want to kind of close with from a standard standpoint, at least as far as NIST goes, is the framework's outcomes, they also serve as a target for workforce development and evolution activities, right? So it's not just about security technology per se, but it is also about uh, enhancing the skills of our workforce.
Now, Prithvi, I understand that the NIST framework is similar to another important standard, and that's the IEC 62443. Can you tell us a little bit more about 62443?
Uh, so IEC 62443 is International Electrotechnical Commission. They have set of standards for each layer of architecture, like they have general policies and procedures, uh, system level and component level, manufacturing level, production level. So the main focus for us from a cyber vision perspective is more towards IEC 62443-3/3, which is more of system requirements and security levels defined for manufacturing use case providers for security devices or PLCs or controllers. So the main focus over there for our cyber vision is focused on system level. These are like 14 different policies and procedures which are predefined by for the OT sector to follow. But I think getting deeper would take us more in details. For the sake of that, I would let Vikram continue with the other procedures and standards, which will help you understand more on these.
So there seems to be a lot of standards and guidelines that we can leverage out there, but it's still a very overwhelming feeling. Where do I get started, and how do I advise my customers with something very specific?
Jason, I hear this question all the time, and the sort of the high level thought process is the standards drive your roadmap, right? So we follow the standards. Um, but as they say, Rome was not built in a day. And so getting your industrial network to a high level of security standard is a journey. It's a journey of enhancing security posture, right? And it is also a journey driven by increasing sophistication of different security technologies and improving people skills and workforce skills, as well as organizational processes. I like to share this picture. Think of it as a mountaineering trek where you have to climb different peaks, and as you kind of go from one height to the other, it becomes easier to get to, and then when you're kind of at sort of the apex, it doesn't look that you've put in that much effort because you've been making incremental progress, right? And what we have done is, if you see this picture, we have 3 steps defined in this journey, and the target of this journey is to build a converged IT, OT, security operations set. What are these 3 steps? There's minimal security, there's foundation security, and full spectrum security. And as I mentioned, there are 3 things that are enhanced in this journey at each step. The network architecture and technologies, security technologies, people skills, as well as the organization processes. So our guidance is evaluate where you are at in this process, evaluate your customer, and then figure out, where do you want to go, where you're at, and what's the next step. What we've seen is that a large chunk of the industry is centered around the minimal security. Our goal is to have the industry elevate to foundation security, and hence the name foundation security. And minimal security, just to kind of give you a quick touch on what minimal security is, I have a small diagram here. And if you see this diagram, it's a Purdue model representation of an industrial network. You can see the cell zone and the area zone, control zone, which is all part of the OT side. And then there is the IT side, or the enterprise zone. And in between that, there is a set of firewalls, or the industrial demilitarized zone, IDMZ. So what we have done in step 1 in minimal security is, from an architecture standpoint, we have segmented the enterprise network and the industrial network. And technology standpoint, we've put in firewalls to affect this segmentation. And now from a process standpoint, IT and OT need to have a workflow where certain accesses and ports can be opened up. Certain access controls can be put in place of what accesses through the IDMZ, going from the enterprise to the industrial, or from the industrial to the enterprise. So this is sort of the minimal security. And if you don't have an IDMZ, our recommendation is build out an IDMZ, right? But we know that this is not sufficient to stop the kind of attacks we talked about, the various news articles. So how do we secure this environment, and how do we promote it to foundation security? Here is where I think the discussion of different standards and frameworks comes into play. What we have done, Jason, is we've basically taken the NIST cybersecurity framework and the 62443-3 framework, and basically created something that is simple to be adopted. It talks about four main areas in this framework. One is asset discovery, and asset discovery deals with what assets are deployed on your network, what are all the active assets at any given time. It also talks about a little bit more details of your asset, what firmware versions the assets are running. It also covers, asset discovery also covers the communication flows or the application flows between assets. what asset is communicating to what other asset, over what protocol, how often, what variable is being read or written to, etc. The next one is network segmentation. Now, based on what you have understood from your asset discovery, you optimize your network segmentation in order to isolate and contain any malware or any viruses or any intrusions that happen to the smallest possible section or a subsection of your network. The next one is threat detection. This is where the ongoing process of detecting threats and events. And lastly, once you do detect something, an event or a threat, you now get into the investigative and the response mode to understand how impactful is this threat, how do you respond to it, and you can gain a holistic view of all these threats, and then the security experts can categorize and investigate these threats. So the important topic or the important point I'd like to leave here is a lot of this is based on the ability to have visibility, right? And so gain visibility into the OT network, and then with that visibility, you can build and enforce the right security policies. That would get us to a preamble for what foundation security brings to the table, as well as the standards that are carried on with it.
So, talk to me about this foundational security architecture that you mentioned earlier on. What would a foundational security architecture look like, and what are the components that make the sum strong? Could you dive into this for us, Vikram?
Absolutely, Jason. So if you remember our minimal security architecture, it was a Purdue architecture. On that same architecture, we can now show what a foundation security architecture looks like. So first of all, I'd like to point out on this journey, these 3 steps, minimal, foundation, and full spectrum, these are all additive steps. What you do in one step gets carried forward into the next. So here, the first thing I'd draw your attention on this diagram is there is still an IDMZ, right? So that's what we had put in place in our minimal security step. But in foundation security, there are 5 main items I'd like to bring your attention to. The first one is item number 1, which is Cisco Cyber Vision. And here, if you notice, there is the Cyber Vision Center, which tells you all the details of your assets and the communication flows between these assets. The way this is done is, if you notice here, the Cyber Vision Center, which shows item number 1, the 2 cells that I've shown here on the left and the right, on the left cell, there is a switch that has a sensor. That is a Cyber Vision sensor that is embedded within a switch. There are Cisco family of switches that can have this capability to run the Cyber Vision sensor. And the sensor does 2 things. It senses information flowing through it. It does DPI on the packets. And it can also do active discovery of detailed information associated with those assets. On the bottom right cell, I've shown there is a network and a switch. If it's not a Cisco switch, or if it is a version of Cisco switch that does not support the sensor, you can always apply the Cyber Vision sensor on an IC3000 that does the same thing. You span the traffic through a short cable. Many times we recommend just put the IC3000 right next to the switch and run a short cable through it, Ethernet cable, and then you can span the traffic. So all of this information feeds into the CyberVision Center. That's number one. Your visibility and discovery capabilities are embodied in that technology, in the CyberVision technology. Number two is segmentation. So here we are taking the concept of zones and conduits from 62443-3, and then we have deployed, if you look at this, we've deployed these firewalls, Cisco Industrial Security Appliance ISA 3000 at these various zones. And you may choose the level, you can put it against a cell area, or you can put it against a line, which may be a whole zone and area zone. But basically, you can now control and enforce your segmentation through these firewalls. Number three is, again, it points to the same firewall. Here we are running malware detection and intrusion protection within these firewalls. So the conduits of communication, you can track if these intrusions are spreading through this conduit, and you can enforce the rules and the communication rules that you would like to enforce as per your policy. The item number three also shows up on the enterprise zone in the security operations center. Here, what we are doing is, this is FMC, which is Firepower Management Center, and this provides your rule consistency across all your instances of the firewalls. This is the ISA 3000 as well as the firewalls in the DMZ, in the IDMZ. Number four is all this context and the contents of the assets is fed into your SOC. So CyberVision Center as well as ISA 3000, these can communicate information to your SOC on these assets and these events. And number five is Cisco SecureX. This is investigative and an information aggregation capability and technology where you can bring in all these event information together and run investigations and security cases. So if you notice in foundation security, what we have done is inside the industrial network, we've put in more security technology. We put in Cisco CyberVision, and we put in the ISA 3000 firewalls. And this capability with the ISA and CyberVision, it provides its context into the IT SOC, where now your IT SOC can extend a security cover over to the industrial network. And if you think about it, there are just three products, basically two products that we have added. One is CyberVision, which provides the detection capabilities, and then the ISA 3000, which provides the protection capabilities. SecureX, which is the response product, that is in the SOC, but inside your industrial network, there are just two products. And all of these are powered by Talos, so they have up-to-date threat intelligence. So essentially, if with this, what we can do is we can detect all the assets, and we can contain the intrusions and malware from spreading to the entire plant, right? So, or we can contain the intrusions within a specified zone. And this is what foundation security brings to the table. Now, of course, with this context sharing, the workflow between IT and OT has to be a little bit more sophisticated, as well as the complexity of introducing this and the skills has sort of been alleviated by a phased approach.
Thanks for that, Vikram. Now that we understand the foundational elements of security, I just wanted to recap the value of CyberVision that CyberVision brings to industrial networks. First, Cybervision provides visibility by understanding what's on the network from an asset inventory perspective. It also provides operational insights by monitoring who's talking to who and taking and tracking what has changed. Cybervision also provides the ability to detect anomalies on your network, and that includes abnormal behaviors like hacking events. So, Priti, would you be able to give us a short demonstration of those capabilities?
Sure, Jason. I would be more than happy to share you a demo on Cybervision. Let me share my screen here. Okay, this is a dashboard of Cybervision Center, and go on Explore. There are different presets, so you can have different kinds of presets where you can say, like, I want to look at particularly on OT environment or only on IT environment. I want to pick on VLAN base or specific IP address ranges I want to create and things like that. So these are some already we have some couple configured for this demo. So let me click on OT traffic over here, where it says like the tags are control info, firmware updates, program downloads, and things like that. So let me go and dig deeper inside it. So this button over here, it's called as activity discovery settings. So if you enable it, if you click and enable it, it's going to discover all the presets you have configured in this particular thing. Like, if you go and select networks and create, like, if you want to specifically, as I said before, if you want to pick on particular VLAN ID tags and like put them all in this preset search and put it in there, you can give that VLAN ID and select discover. Since all this Cybervision Center would be sending that to sensors, and sensors would be trying to collect anything it founds a particular VLAN ID and push it all back to this dashboard where you can have a view. So there are multiple options you can select. You can do component tags like device level 1, level 2, network analysis, or if there's a specific software you want to do, active discovery, like Active Directory, or NetLogon, or Vim, WMI, Windows 7, Windows 10, Windows 98. I don't know if Windows 90 is still available, but OT environments. And if you want to pick on specific uh, platforms like Rockwell or Hirschman or Siemens or Fanuc robots, or Schneider, you can just select on this particular, and it's going to detect and put them in this preset. These are all like different components. We can explore more on things like that. Let me go a little deeper. If this is the dashboard of this particular preset, and now if I want to look at a map view of all these components, how it's looking at, let's pick first a simple view, right? So in a simple view, we just wanted to see like how these OT things have been connected and things like that. Okay, let me zoom in a little. Let me minimize it. Again, over here, if you look at it, network analysis is in purple, IT behavior is this, green is control system behavior. Important is something we need to really look at, some kind of activity which we need to address, or there's some kind of vulnerability we need to look at, things like that. Red is always a danger. So let me zoom in. If I zoom in, and okay, look over here. This Siemens device is communicating with another Siemens device, and is communicating through another Siemens device and a Windows machine. So over here, it's giving me, if you go click on it, if you click, as soon as I click this, it shows this. So it says like the 16 has 16 vulnerabilities, and it has have like 14 events. There are 18 different flows. There's one module. Then this is giving you a whole high level view of how this whole preset has scanned and collected this information. Then let me go dig deeper on expert level. When I click on expert level, and then this is Siemens, I go dig deeper, and this is how this whole deployment, like Moksha, like furnace, and this again. This is the same view, but it gives you more realistic view, more a little more detailed view when you click on map experts. And then if you want to look at all the components list of this particular preset, you have Rockwell, you have Siemens, ABB, Fisher, all these are all the different components which are there in this particular preset, which it could detect depending on either it's a VLAN ID or an IP address, and things like that. Okay, let me go back to vulnerabilities. Let me pick on vulnerabilities. And when I click on vulnerabilities, in this particular preset, it has picked these all vulnerabilities, picking from a particular partner or a particular vendor CVEs. So if you click on one of the particular CVE and click on it, it will give you like what is the CVE score on it, which is how secure it is, what kind of exploitation is it, and how can it be, when was it published, how can it be fixed, what has to be done to mitigate this vulnerability, and things like that. So the next one I would like to show is the activity list. So if you click on it, this will show you what activities has been happening on this particular preset, right? Like, this component and this component, there was this activity happening. There was an app request there. And if you look at this Fisher and OWSI1, there was a read variable and write variable and ARP, Delta V protocol and things like that. And again, from this to this, there was Profinet DCP, what kind of communication has happened across this whole components, but from a particular component to another component, what kind of communication has happened, what kind of protocols has been used, how much time it took, and things like that. More details on each and every flow it has gone through, like how many packets, how many volume, how many events have occurred like this in the past, in the future, and in this particular time frame. Again, then if you click on the Purdue model, it will give you level 0 to 1, where the machine looks like, where is level 2 and level 3. It categorizes those and gives you a pictorial view. The best thing, one of the big feature I really enjoy about the Cybervision, imagine in an OT environment, IT people come and say like, hey, I don't know where this wireless cable is running to where and what communication looks like. The best part is like, as if you deploy a sensor and put it to Cybervision, it does you an analytics using that metadata the sensor gives you and puts it in a pictorial way, like this Purdue model, where an IT or an OT can really understand how the traffic is flowing, like from this machine to that machine and from that machine to that machine, and it gives you a view and a lines, and is a visualization for an engineer to really understand. He doesn't have to know anything about networking or how the flows are. At least he knows that this particular PLC should communicate to a safety IO. And if I trigger something, this is working or not. These kind of details would help IT along with OT to analyze, hey, is this an expected behavior or not? The OT would be able to educate IT that, hey, this is something we are working on. And if there are any patches, what would the downtime look like? And this brings them a communication path between IT and OT. So that's another feature which I really enjoy when I look at the Cybervision. I get excited. Sorry, I got distracted from the demo a little, but that's one thing. Then you can run reports. This is another beautiful feature. You can run reports using an inventory or what kind of activity is running on, what kind of vulnerability. If you have particular vulnerability you have looked at, you can select that and look at particular vulnerability reports and, click on this, select for past 1 month or 6 months, or you can generate that report. So just for fun and giggle, I'm just going to run for this last week and generate it in a HTML format. You can generate it in Excel to compare, but just for our demo, let me pull it in HTML. When I click on it, here is the report. It pulls out vulnerability reports of different groups, controls, shell machines. Like if you look at it, HP, this machine has a vulnerability. Here you go. It gives SMB remote code execution vulnerability CVE, which was like Microsoft Links has provided this. It was published in March 30th. That gives you more details on each and every vulnerability that's detected for that particular machine, including its CVSS codes, like vulnerability codes, ratings, if you call them. For you to understand, it will give you those numbers and what can be done, and if it has any mitigations that can be used, you can go through those for each and every component of but from this range. And to compare, after a week later, you want to run the same report and see whether something have been fixed or not, is it been done or not. You can generate this and compare to that, hey, we are complying and we are in the process to secure the OT environment. That kind of a insight would be given by generating this report. There's another beautiful, cool feature you can run for PLCs and stuff. Then, on a high level, if you want to look at all the events happening, for this particular day, what are the events? How many, were there any high level events compared to, were there any critical events which occurred and things like that? This is the dashboard, and then you can select weeks, months, and years, depending on the time frame. It's the same with all the events. Even at Explore, you can change the time frame for that particular day or a week or a month or a year across. Then other thing is, like, if you want to search for a particular device, imagine if Rockwell has released one of the CVE like yesterday and said like, hey, 12.1.1, so and so 1744B, 1744B or something like that has so and so vulnerability, and the running software version of 12.1. If they have to fix, they're supposed to upgrade. And as soon as you see the CVE in your email or something, and as a person, like, oh, how many Rockwell devices do I have in the field? Okay, you might know out of number, but then what version is it running? So this assert search is one of the coolest features. Again, not to brag about, but I'm in love with this product as soon as I saw it. But if you go and click on it, if as soon as I searched Rockwell, I have 8 components in this whole thing. I can go dig deeper. I can click on it. I can just like say click. It gives me the whole firmware version, last activity, and things like that. And like you would be able to see like each and every detailed description, like 1756 IB. Okay, this, if it was not 1744, okay, this is not impacted, right? So I can put this and like particularly pick exactly something specific to it. Right, so this is another coolest feature. So let me this is like what it can do, how we can leverage these and things like that. So if you ask me like, hey, how am I going to deploy these sensors which does the deep packet inspection, you're talking about, this is all about analytics. What is it exactly which runs this? How are we getting this data? That's if something that triggered in your head, yes, then you're in the right path. So those, we have cyber vision is just the analytical part of it. What actually runs is a container-based application. We call them as sensors, which runs on Cisco switches or Catalyst 9300, or we have a separate appliance which runs the sensor. And this sensor is nothing but a Docker container which does the deep packet inspection, and it will send the metadata needed for the cyber vision center, to analyze and show you the flows, the vulnerabilities, and things like that. So, so as soon as I say that, hey, how are you going to deploy these sensors? Don't worry, it's the easiest part, honestly, and it's like the whole OT securing part. I feel like cyber vision has covered everything and thought through in a well-mannered way for the OT folks to really leverage this. So as soon as you click on sensors, if you go to admin, sensors, and click on it, and you'll find deploy Cisco device. And as soon as you click on that, you give credentials like, if you see over here, there's an IR 1100, IC 3000, IE 3400. Right, and there is a sensor VM which is running on 17 to things like if there is if you have a container that you can run on, you can use this and deploy it. No big deal. It's so easy to run cyber vision from anywhere, as long as if you're an OT environment and if you want to know about your securing your OT environment, we have architecture for it for sure. We can definitely help. Reach out to me, or any of the PSS or TSAs. They can definitely help you out. So let me go dig deeper on it. IR 1100, again, it supports Docker container. So the sensor is a Docker container based application. So as long as you have connectivity from Cyber Vision Center to that IR 1100, you can deploy it. IC3000 is a ruggedized hardware designed for this sensor application itself. So it's a industrial compute module, which what you can do is you can connect if you have a Moxa switch or a Hirschman switch, and you hook this up IC3000 to that, give an IP address and log into it, and you have connectivity from CyberVision sensor to that IC3000, and you're spanning all the traffic from Moksha or Hirschman or any other OT environment switches to this IC3000. Then a deep packet inspection is done in IC3000, and it's going to send the metadata to CyberVision Center. Then IE3400, it's again like, if you're a Cisco shop and you have IE3400, one of your cells, you can deploy it. Okay. And these sensors have different ways to deploy it. Like, if you want to only monitor OT environment traffic, you can select that when you deploy it. And if you want to deploy all the traffic, like IT, OT, DNS, HTTP, or any kind of traffic going across it, you can do that. If you want to do only IT, which is more like, you don't care about SIP or Hirschman or Profinet or Profibus, Fanuc protocols or any of these, you can do that too. So these are multiple options you can, depending on your environment, you can leverage those. And other thing is, again, if you want to update your system, it's easy. All you have to do is go to admin system update. If it has a network connectivity, it just goes and updates for you. Not a big deal. You can shut it down, and these are basic features. And then let me go a little, data management is self-explanatory, but I'll just show you. You can just clear all data or any particular activity flows or something like that. You can click and clear those, which is to just clear and make your CyberVision Center to be fresh and clean and things. You can go here and clear all the data to do that. You can look at events. Events will give you all the events which are happening. If there is an anomaly detection, you can click on that and enable those particular detections to be shown. Those events, like what kind of events you want to enable, you will go and configure over here. It has given another couple more features, CyberVision has given a lot of API integrations. If you go and look at this, if you want to do APIs and call them a particular flow you want to trigger some particular A and B event, these are all the APIs you can leverage to do it. Okay, to integrate it. And then, it has given an LDAP if an OT environment has, Windows machine sitting in there, Windows AD, and OT has separate, is demilitarized from IT. Yes, definitely, you can integrate depending on the personal. If it's a plan for personal, he has only particular access. You can integrate that using an LDAP. So that's why they have given this particular feature. Snort is another application where, you can create rules, categories and stuff like that. It is it used to be initially open source. Now it's maintained by Cisco Talos, we call them, and they do extensively update regularly on all the vulnerabilities going across. So you can create this particular set of rules and synchronize them and exploits, depending on. And the next one is, if you have an IT which has security gigs, and they love this stuff as soon as you say. I know this is just a bridge between IT and OT, but we have leverage to integrate CyberVision with Cisco ICE, Cisco Threat Response, Fire Management Center, Firepower Threat Defense. So these are all integrations. It's not complex. It's easy. They're they can help you if IT wants to know about and help OT to protect it, create an armies and rules and stuff. They can definitely come over here and admin integration to do those. Then there are particular extensions. If you want to import to it, you can do this. So on a high level, this is just to give you a look and feel of how CyberVision can help you and other things. But if you want to go more details and into specific requirements or how can you leverage and secure your OT environment, definitely reach out to me or any of your TSS or.
So, Vikram, are there any other vendors that play in the OT cybersecurity space?
Yeah, Jason, there are other vendors that play in this space. And I would like to say two things here. One is that Cisco is the only vendor that play in the overall cybersecurity space, from IT enterprise, even ISP security, down to your cell level security. There are, to my knowledge, I'm not aware of there are other vendors that can play across such a broad range. And we have some very key differentiating capabilities within our product offerings that makes our product far more scalable in the industrial space.
And are there key differentiators that Cisco has with CyberVision that the competition does not have?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what CyberVision is offering us, and let me share one picture here. For the industrial networks, scalability is a key requirement, as well as, uptime, as you'd mentioned. Anything that brings the network down is a big problem. If you look at the picture on the left, this is what all of our other competitors bring to the table, where essentially it's a span-based data aggregation based capability, where from different levels of your network, you pull out the data stream through span into a separate span network, and then there is an analysis aggregation tool that lets you see what's going on in there. What we have is what I've shown on the picture on the right. Cisco CyberVision is embedded inside your network, right? And so you don't have to do any wiring to build a separate span network and manage that span network. And what we've seen is the sensor only analyzes the data, and the analysis of that data is what we call as the metadata. We've seen it is between 2 and 5% of the data stream, and that's what it sends out. So it adds very trivial amounts of load on your existing network. What this means is essentially you have the ability to turn on sensing, visibility, and discovery capabilities in a network just by software commands only. Right? The CyberVision Center is quite often just a VM which you can install anywhere. And then by software commands on the center, you can turn on the sensors. The other thing I'd like to touch upon as a differentiating factor is now, because our sensors are running at different levels in the network, we have the unique capability of being able to do active sensing. So let's say we discover through DPI that here is a device with this IP address, this MAC address. We talk so many different industrial protocols. Once we know that, hey, there is a device with this IP and MAC, we can query it for some more detailed information in the relevant industrial protocol, and it will be below the NAT boundary. Because a sensor is sitting below the NAT boundary, you get very accurate information, and you're not flooding the network with a lot of active messages. So these two things in combine have a very powerful capability for industrial networks, where natting is very common, and getting accurate information through a NAT boundary is hard. But in our case, we can get accurate information, as well as you don't have to lay out new cabling in a separate span network to get information and visibility to your network. So these two are really powerful and key differentiators.
I clearly see the value for both IT and OT in this architecture. And in the CyberVision demo, we were able to see the importance of having visibility into industrial networks. But thinking back to the beginning of our conversation, you described 3-step of IT-OT converged SOC journey: minimal security, foundational security, and full spectrum. I see that having foundational security is key, but I'm also curious on the next step. Tell me more about full spectrum security.
Uh, yeah, so full spectrum would require a full session, but let me describe some salient points of the full spectrum architecture. Right. Um, so one thing here is, let me bring up this picture. This is the architecture for full spectrum security, and as you can notice, it still has an IDMZ. It has Cisco Cyber Vision, and it has ISA. So it has the components of minimal and foundation. Now you're adding on full spectrum capabilities. Um, uh, I also want to reiterate one more competitive difference, which is if you notice what we've done is Cisco, we have integrated various tools and tools from the cell level down and up to the security operations center, the SOC level. And this provides a full end-to-end security solution for IT and OT for both networks. So that that is a competitive differentiator, and full spectrum basically brings about this fully converged IT OT SOC. And if you look at the full spectrum architecture, we follow the same standard framework that I described in the previous slide, which is discover, segment, detect, and respond. So here in the discover, in addition to Cisco Cyber Vision, we have also positioned Stealth Watch. So you can extend your visibility and detection by analyzing the net flows with Stealth Watch. You're getting a much finer grain and a different level of visibility of traffic flows at different layers of the network, both the industrial and IT network. The segmentation portion of it, we are enabling Cisco TrustSec with ICE, which enables a software-defined segmentation with much higher granularity. So in minimal security, our segmentation was at the vast network level, right? The enterprise network segmented from the industrial network. In the foundation security, we had segmentation at the zone level inside the industrial network. So we kind of shrunk these to smaller containment zones. With full spectrum and with ICE and Cisco TrustSec, you can shrink those containment zones down to potentially individual devices, right? So you're deepening the level of segmentation that you can have. What we are also enabling here is a lot of the DNS security with Cisco Umbrella. There are a lot of applications that have cloud aspect and cloud components of it. That's one reason why we have Umbrella. And then I want to reiterate, we have a consistent security rules posture being done through FMC for all your different firewalls. So if you think about full spectrum security, it follows the same framework of discover, segment, detect, and respond, and it deepens the discover and the detection capabilities. So in a nutshell, this is full spectrum.
So Vikram, maybe I can give you a few final words to conclude our presentation.
Sure.
And then we can close the PIW.
Securing industrial networks is not an option anymore, right? Even if you think your company or your network is not a target, you never know. A malware could hit you and then cause widespread disruption. And our partners can help evaluate our customers where they're at. And we should aspire to get everyone at least up to the foundation security level. And we can impress upon our customers that IT and OT collaboration is key. They have to bring their skills. Both organization skills are needed in order to secure the industrial network. And building the shared understanding of the assets inside the industrial network and what communication protocols they use, that is a key foundational capability that is needed in order to build all the collaboration processes or workflow processes for segmentation or detection or response. So set reasonable targets. It's gain mind share and acceptance with the different organizations. Walk them through this path, right? They don't have to jump straight to full spectrum. It's important to go through this journey and then try and avoid making a separate OT security silo. It's best to converge the security skills that the IT team has with a lot of these threats. They can be brought to bear on the industrial network. Those guys, IT guys, don't know our OT assets and processes, but that's where the OT engineers come into play to work with them. So we've seen from these attacks that a disruption in one network can cause outage in the other network. Think of the Colonial attack. There are a couple of blogs we've written. There's a blog from my side as well. We know that an IT attack can shut down OT. So you need global capabilities. And as you mature your workforce and your capabilities and technologies, your security posture will continue to rise. And the last thing I would kind of leave this at is, Jason, you'd mentioned, uptime is high on the OT manager's mind. And I always advise the customers I meet with is that we have in operations and manufacturing, we have maintenance workflows and maintenance line items, which are daily, weekly, monthly, whatever. There are things that you do. Security is now another maintenance item. Your uptime can be severely impacted if you do not do security maintenance. So look at this as another maintenance line item, and you just need the help of another entity, people who deal with security threats to be part of your maintenance workflow. With that, I would say thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be here in the session.
Thank you. I want to take some time to thank all the partners for joining us on this Partner Interactive webinar, The Journey to Securing Industrial Networks. Please reach out to your local IoT PSS and TSA for more details on Cisco Cyber Vision. And finally, thank you so much, Vikram and Prithvi, for your insights into cybersecurity for industrial networks. And we look forward to seeing you all on our next PIW in 2 weeks. Bye for now.